What you guys, got another video why your SSD suddenly might be slowing down and how can you fix it? That's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. So you bought an SSD because it was supposed to be lightning fast, and for a while it was, and your PC booted up in seconds and games loaded instantly, but lately it feels sluggish. Files are taking longer to move and your operating system is stuttering. Is your SSD dying? Maybe, but more likely you're accidentally strangling it. The number one killer of SSD speed is capacity. Unlike an old hard drive, an SSD needs breathing room to move data around. SSDs use a process called garbage collection. When the drive is nearly full, it has to consistently move existing data just to find a place to write new data. This creates write amplification. To fix your SSD, keep your SSD under 70 to 80% capacity. If that bar is fully red, it's time to move your 100GB Call of Duty install to a second drive. So when I use the optimization tool built into Windows, which a lot of people disable because they think it's running defrag on their system, it should say trimmed on here. And this is basically using the trim command to clean out all of that garbage on the free space of the drive. So basically when you delete a file, Windows tells the SSD it's gone, but the physical data often sits there until the drive is told to wipe the block. This is handled by a command called trim. If trim isn't running, your SSD has to clean every time it tries to write, which doubles the work. That's why it's important that you don't disable optimization in the Windows tool, because if you do, then it's not going to be able to run the trim command on that SSD. Next, you can check inside PowerShell and type WinSat space disk space dash drive and then space C. And what this will do is it will run a check on that drive and it will give you the information here. And you can see it's run a read and write test. It will also give you some basic information. Now there's software out there which you can also use, and this will give you the read and write information here. But really what you should be doing is going to the manufacturer's website to be able to download their software, and this will give you more information about your drive. If you've got a cheap drive, it probably won't have software. Next, you can type defrag space / capital O and then space capital C : press enter, and this will be invoking the retrim on Windows C drive, and this will basically run the trim command here. Now again, if your drive supports trim, it will be able to use it. Some drives don't. Some of the cheaper Chinese brand drives don't even have software to check the drive. It's important that you check the drive's temperature. Thermal throttling is a big problem with NVMe drives. I've seen people not using heat sinks on top of them, and this can make the drive get very hot, especially the latest generation drives. They do run pretty hot. Now this is a Samsung drive inside here, and Samsung has some of the best software that you can download for your SSD NVMe drive. Now remember, some motherboard manufacturers will put the M.2 slot behind the GPU, which means when you're playing games, the GPU is getting super hot, which means the actual drive is going to start getting very hot as well. That's why it's important to buy a motherboard with some form of have a heatsink on it. And some motherboards do have those on them. Some of the cheaper boards don't, and that means you have to buy a third-party heatsink for your actual drive. Now we're going to install the software and I'll show you basically what it looks like. Now if you do have a decent drive, it will normally have its own software which you can use to check temperatures, check read and write speeds, run trim commands from here as well to clean the drive, even format and secure erase all of the data on the drive using the manufacturer's software. So if you have a high-speed NVMe M.2 drive, it's basically a tiny piece of hardware that acts like a heater. It gets super hot, and some of the Gen 5 ones get right up there in temperature, so it's important that you have a heatsink. One of these drives hits certain temperatures, usually around 70 Celsius, which is pretty hot. You want to try and get that down to at least 50 or below if you can. Now, if your SSD doesn't support software like this, you can use Crystal Disk Info. And you can see up the top, it's telling us the name of the drive, the brand, also the model and the size of it, and it will also tell us whether it's an authenticated drive. There's lots of fake Samsung drives out there, so if you are buying these online, make sure you buy them from a reputable seller. If we look at the smart readout here, it's got critical, fair and good. All of the status for this one is in good shape. It says all good here with blue little lights, and that's good. So if these were fair or red, it could mean there's a problem. So this is also a sign that something is wrong. You can export all of that data to a document if you wish. It's important that you keep tabs on this stuff, especially if you're using bleeding edge SSDs like this one, which run super hot. There's also loads of settings in here that you can configure and change to your liking, whether you want Celsius or Fahrenheit, or whether you want to have the dashboard history option turned on. This will auto refresh as well. So we can turn this on and this will give us temperatures on that drive, and you can delete the dashboard history as well. So let's go back here and take a look at the dashboard, and now you'll see temperatures here, and it will start to monitor these. Now, these are pretty accurate, but you know, they're not 100% accurate, but they do give you a pretty decent idea of what your temperature is on there. And this one is pretty hot at 55 Celsius, and that's because I've been rendering videos as well recently, but it does get a bit cooler than that once it's idle. You can also do other things on here as well. You can see we're getting temperatures and stats right here, but we can do a performance benchmark on here as well. And this will be in that middle section right here. You can add more of these little widgets on here if you want to, and just click on add, and it will add or take away widgets that you don't want on here. And you can add a widget and have a little look and see what widgets are available to add to that front page if you want to add those in. There's also diagnostic information, performance management, and also security settings on here as well. And it tells you about the drive volume, the temperatures, and everything about the drive. You can do a quick scan on that drive as well. There's a little drop down there with more options if you want to do a longer scan to check the drive to see whether there's any issues with the read and writes of that drive or any other issues with the drive. And there's lots of things you can do in here. You can run trim from inside here. You can secure erase stuff as well if you want to do that here. The software is full of good features that you would use on a regular basis. Remember, not all SSDs are created equal. Cheaper DRAM-less drives lack the dedicated memory chip to keep track of where your data is stored. All of these drives get older and fuller, and they get significantly slower because they have to use the slow flash memory just to find your files. But this Samsung drive is definitely not one of those, and it is a pretty decent drive, probably one of the best on the market. Now, if you do have a DRAM-less drive, a cheaper drive, you have to be even stricter with the amount of data that you fill up on that drive. About 70% capacity is the rule for those cheaper drives. Now, I'm running a quick diagnostic test here on this one, as you can see, just to see how the drive is performing, and you should see all good. If you start seeing some bad showing up here, then that's not a good sign. It's about time you start thinking about backing up some of your data and making sure that it's safe, because you don't know how bad that drive is and you need to investigate further. Now remember, every SSD that has been made has a terabytes written limit. This is TBW for short, and it's their rating for that drive, and it normally tells you the lifespan of that drive. If you've been using the same drive for 5+ years for heavy video editing or gaming or things like that, it could be reaching its limit and could be wearing out, and something like these tests will tell you that. So these are the 3 things you should be doing to make sure your drive is staying in good health. Enable trim and make sure it can run automatically. Watch for those temperatures, make sure they stay at reasonable temps, and also check your health status on a regular basis for that drive to make sure the drive is fully functional and working the way it should. Now, if your drive is failing, or it's got bad errors on it, or it's really slow after you've done trim and it's got some issues there, it may be time to upgrade that drive and replace it. But good quality drives do last a very long time, and if you can check the terabytes written of that drive, it will normally tell you how roughly long that drive will last. Remember, if you're using it as a gaming drive to do gaming on or video editing and moving large files, get a good quality drive with high terabytes written and you should be good to go. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. My name has been Brian from briteccomputers.co.uk. Quick shout out to all my YouTube members who have joined my YouTube members group. I really do appreciate the support, and I shall catch you in the next video, or I'll see you on the Discord server for a chat. The link is in the video description. Bye for now.